leadership is not a title. It
Yeah.
really isn't. And I think a lot of people get into leadership for the wrong reasons. They get in either because they need more money or they need control. And you can
Mm.
always tell those types of people, but at the end of the day, like when you get the right person in, if you hire the right person in leadership, there's nothing you can't do. Because when people want to follow the person that's in leadership in the role because they're leading a life of example, what happens is those people get inspired. They want to be they want to be they don't want to be me. They want to
Mm.
move like me and do things like that. Is just there's nothing about it them wanting to be. They just want the what is it that she's doing that gives her the ability to do these things and make such big progress.
In today's episode, I speak to Tiffany Morice, and it was such an exciting conversation that I had. Now, I will admit that we had a very long pre-conversation, and so you'll hear multiple times in this interview, you'll hear, oh, as we said in the pre-conversation. So, yeah, we ended up having such a long pre-conversation that we decided that okay, we've got to stop the pre-conversation and actually start recording. So, yeah, we had a really good conversation. And Tiffany has got a really interesting history, a really good story about leadership. And so that is her expertise. And that is what God has called her into. And so I knew that this was going to be a really good episode for the listeners of this show because I believe that each and every one of you have been called into leadership, not by anyone, but by God. And so step into the belief that God has called you into your leadership role. And I want you to know that God called you and therefore He will equip you because He's called you. So I really hope, and I know actually, that this interview with Tiffany is going to bless you so much and it's going to give you the confidence that you need for your own leadership role, but also just to have the knowledge that, okay, there's other people out there that was also called by God, and look at what are the amazing things that they are doing. I can do them too. So I really hope that you enjoy this interview with Tiffany, and I look forward to you coming to join me in the Facebook community where I go live on a fortnightly basis to discuss the Proverbs 31, how to become a Proverbs 31 woman and leader. And so it's very, very interesting to me. Yesterday was Mother's Day, and I received a makeup bag or a pencil case, you can use it for either, at church yesterday. And the verse that was on this pencil case was Proverbs 31:26. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. And I looked at some of the other bags, and not all of the other bags had Proverbs on it, but I knew when I took this bag, Proverbs 31:26, that God had a message for me. I need to keep on doing what I'm doing. It was just a motivation to me. I felt God speaking directly to me to say that I know that this podcast is a blessing to you all, and because I'm an instrument and because, I'm allowing God to use me. My prayer is that this podcast and all the guests, the series, and the life coaching that I'm sharing with you is going to be a blessing to you, because that's ultimately my aim with this show. And so I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for listening to another episode. And please come and join the community of female Christian leaders. Simply go to my brand new website, by the way, very exciting, womenoffaithinleadership.com. Go and have a look at my brand new website. I'm very excited. It released last week. So you can go and have a look there. If you specifically want to go to the podcast website, it is womenoffaithinleadership.com/podcast. Okay, let's do it. Let's jump in.
Do you wish that you could lead your team in a way that honors and glorifies God? Are you struggling to overcome self-doubt as a leader and have a desire to be more confident in your role? Welcome to the Women of Faith in Leadership podcast. I'm Rika, and for the last decade, I've experienced my fair share of managing challenging employees and teams in middle management leadership roles. I committed my leadership journey to God, and it changed everything. And I'm ready to share everything I've learned with you. Now, if you're ready to lead your team in a way that honors God, grab that notebook and pen, and don't forget your chai latte, and let's dive in.
Hi, Tiffany, and welcome to the Woman of Faith in Leadership podcast. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. We've already had such an amazing pre-conversation, so that's why I was like, nope, let's stop here because your story is amazing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then the topic that we're talking about today?
Yeah, so the topic is going to be leadership, a woman in faith, basically how God has got me to where I'm at and starting the business. And a little bit about me. Let's see, I am 42 years old. I am a mother of one. She is 19. I live in Oakland, California. I run my own business. I'm a public speaker and leadership and motivational speaker. And I also work for the IRS.
Great. So let's jump into your background story. How did you get where you are today? You kind of preluded in the pre-conversation. That's why I was like, ooh, this is very interesting. The listeners are going to love this story as well. So just jump into it. I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, so it started really God showed me that leadership was in my life long before I knew that it was on my life. And so when I was 18, I graduated high school and I went straight into the military. And so I was dorm chief, picked out to be dorm chief there, which this was long before I knew leadership was the call of my life. So it's definitely not the place that you want to like stand out. So of course I was like, what is going on here? But um, after after the dorm chief situation, then I got out, then I went to New Mexico. So I was in the Air Force and I was a cop and I've done 3 tours overseas and then I went to Iraq. And so I had this span of like 5 years of me in the military and doing like leadership roles. I was Airman Council president, and leadership has been pretty much involved in, it's been intertwined throughout my entire life. And I only like me and you were talking about before we started the recording, I'm so blessed that I got to be, if I never got another day in my life, I'm just so grateful to see the provision in the hand of God over my life the entire time. Because it's just incredible to look back and see how it was all accumulating together. Because after the military, I then still dedicated my life to public service and I went and worked for government service at the IRS. And I've been there since 2010. It's now 2025. So I've been there 15 years. And for the most of it, I was probably an employee 5 years and then I went into management and then I just kept increasing and now I'm in the executive ranks in executive roles, soon to be hopefully a permanent executive. And it's just been an incredible thing to see not only the trajectory of my life but leadership in different capacities. So that's really what I took. I was like, I think I need to teach this because leadership is so much more than just leadership. Leadership is a lot of your mindset and how, like, I get asked a lot because I coach a lot of people. I'm a coach for the Armed Forces Success Center and I'm a coach throughout my business. And so people come to me and they're like, were you able to do what you do? And at the end of the day, I basically took what God gave me and all of the principles that got me to where I'm at and I teach them how to execute on a daily basis, how to create their mindset to get to the level that you want to be at. Because what I think people forget a lot of the times is they are so concerned or they come to me with, I want to get to X. Whatever the goal is, right? But they don't think about the question I always ask them is, okay, you want to get to X, but do you want to get to X, there is a cost. And so you have to enjoy the process of X more than X. Because some people don't. They only want, it's like the glow up reel, right? Like they only want the X, but they don't want the work to get there. And so at the end of the day, they never get there, right? Because what they don't realize is it's a lot of early mornings, it's a lot of late nights, and it's a lot of like toiling because God loves people that toil. And you're working on your craft and you're constantly learning and pivoting and doing new things. And so when I put it all together, I basically came up with the empowerment equation and it's just been life changing would be an understatement, really. So
Okay, so tell me about when you were 18 and you went into the you joined the army. Let's start with why did you decide to join the army? What was that for you, your push?
yeah. So it's really all I knew. I mean, I joined the Air Force. Okay. But I come from a military family. My dad was Air Force for 20 plus years. He retired. My sister went in the military 3 years before I did. She's 3 years older. She went in as a firefighter. We are all Air Force. However, we both, so in
Sorry,
the
yeah, I said
military,
army. Sorry.
no, that's okay. We all went in the Air Force, but my sister joined a little bit before me, and so the military has this rule that you can't be deployed together in a combat zone if you're the only siblings. And so we must have crossed paths at some point because we ended up in Iraq together. So before they found out that we were both there, we ended up being there for a very minimal time. And once the system caught up that I was there, she had been there longer than I had because I had just arrived. We spent probably one day together. I think we went to dinner or something like that. And then she was shipped home because you can't have two siblings in a combat zone. And she was hit by a drunk driver. And she became a TBI patient, so a traumatic brain injury, which ended her military career. And it literally changed the trajectory of her life. And so why the military? It's all I ever knew. My parents never said go to college. Like it was always go to the military, go to the military. There was really no other option explained to me. Would I have taken another option though? Probably not because I'm so service oriented. Like even in my own leadership, I serve people. Like I don't like people saying that they work for me. Like, no, 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 we're a team. Like I might be boss by title, but I don't think that that's good leadership. I think that there's nothing you're doing that I'm not willing to do. And at the end of the day, I might give the executive decision, but everyone always ends up being at a different place. And as long as I can meet them where they are and not expect them to be somebody else, I genuinely, like for the most part, I get really good quality out of people. You know what I mean? So the military was just all I ever knew. But then after that happened to my sister, I mean, it was basically 10 years of trying to get her back to like even stat because she couldn't hold a job, right? Because she has no short-term memory and all the things. And I'm proud to say that like after all these years of her going through therapy and doing the work, she now can do she's going to be a lineman in Atlanta at
Okay.
like yeah, so she's doing incredible things, being able to do electrical work, which for someone might be really, really easy, but for someone that has a TBI, it just takes so much work to remember. Like electrical is hard anyway, but to do it on top of the injury, I mean, she's just been doing incredible things, you know. So
Wow.
the military's pretty much in our blood.
Mm.
Which made sense then after I got out of the military, why I wanted to still do public service. Like I
Yeah,
did get a
absolutely.
job at the private bank. I was notified that I got a job because I went to accounting school. I went to go be an accountant at NMSU. And when I graduated, I moved to Chicago. I was going through a divorce at the time. And I got the call that I got the job at the private bank, I was just so excited that to have a job, right? And literally, like the same night that something happened with my ex-husband at the same time, I got the email that I also got the job at the IRS. And it was just so divine. I was like, when I was 18 years old, I literally told my parents, I'm dedicating my life to public service. That's just what I want my life to be. And God even like made it all work out to where I didn't have to spend any time away from public service, you know,
Wow.
and I've literally spent my entire life serving. That I
Mm.
don't know any different, and I love it so very much. Like I just get so much reward out of helping people be the best version that they can. And it's so easy to do when you live the life and you just don't talk the life.
Mm.
Right. I think so many times people say, like, I get the number one question I get is, how do you know who's a good coach? Like, I want to hire a coach because I always say the cheat code to wherever you want to get is to get a coach. Because if you could, you would. And so you can't. Right. So then I get, well, how do you know who's a good coach? And my only requirement when you ask, like, okay, the coach is the fruit of their life. You will be able to see what they're coaching on by the fruit of their life. And if they don't have that, move on.
Mm.
Pick someone else because you're not going to get anywhere from somebody that doesn't have decades, or because when they're doing it really well and God blesses that, it's so easy to see like the provision and the obedience, and you can just see it, you know, and you're in good hands when you're with someone that's done it for a long period of time and they're doing it at an exceptional level.
Mm. Absolutely. I even have a podcast coach. I fully believe in if you want to get anywhere, you need a coach. I so
Yes.
agree with you on that one. So
Yes.
I'm curious to go back to you were mentioning you were dorm captain. Is that the thing? Is that the
Dorm
correct
chief. Yep.
dorm chief? Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
So you were put in that position. You're 18 years old. You were
Yep.
in that position, and I'm guessing many of the other women that you have in your dorm are not 18. They're older than you.
Probably a mix, because when you
Okay.
enter the military, you don't have to enter just, I'd say anywhere from 18 to 24.
Okay. Okay. And how did you, I mean, this is would have been interesting to you being a dorm chief at 18 and you're expected to to lead and to make
Yeah,
sure that, because I don't know, because you mentioned that if you if anybody didn't pass, then you have to do a longer stint in the
that's right.
military, so how did you manage to get through that period, and how long was it that you were in that dorm chief position?
I think boot camp is 12 weeks. It was so long ago. I don't remember. It might have been 10 weeks. It's like 10 or 12 weeks, something like that.
Mm.
Um, and then, so you go through what we call boot camp, and you become dorm chief during boot camp, and then you graduate after your 12 weeks. And then in the military, in the Air Force anyway, after you graduate, you then part ways and you go to school for what you're actually going to be in the Air Force for. So
Okay.
I went to security forces training. With anybody in that group that was in security forces, we all went to Lackland. We stayed at Lackland and we went over to the training. If you were going to be an airline pilot, you went to a different training. If you were going to be a nurse, if you were going to be a cook, like depending, whatever your job was in the military, after boot camp, you went off. So, um, to go, it was like, that's what I'm saying. That is what is so incredible about this, because like I was telling you before we started recording, I've been on a couple podcasts, and my most recent one wanted to really talk about how I got to where I'm at.
Mm.
And the reality is that it was not, none of this is my choice. This is
Mm.
just what God has told me to do for my life. It's the calling on my life. And it was the calling long before I knew it was the calling. And He put me in places and things that would develop me along the way to get me to where I'm at right now. And it even started when I knew nothing and I was just this 18-year-old kid, graduated high school, have no real world experience. I mean, nobody is mature at 18. I'm sorry. Like, I cannot believe like I'm even able to go serve in war at 18, but here we are, you know, and I'm so grateful though, because I mean, I was absolutely horrified when it happened. I remember, and I was like, there is no way. I'm not like, you know, for a moment you just get in shock, you know,
Mm.
and I was not as strong in my faith as I am now. So I definitely would not say that I was praying all the time. I might have been praying out of fear, you know, but I was not. Like now, I walk into a room fully confident that God went before me. I
Mm.
have no doubt in my mind I am there by His provision. I get into rooms that I probably do not deserve to be in. And I'm just so grateful to be in this place. And so, but 18, I definitely wasn't there, but I've always been able to rally. Like, that's why I'm not just a leadership, I'm a motivational speaker. Like, I can get people to do, like, rally them around, get them to see the bottom line, stay focused, like do good things. Like, I, for some reason, I've just been able to articulate my craft enough, like, but I do think, and I know I give a lot of credit to my faith, but I do think the motivational part does come from my faith, because my hope is so like, I never see a glass half bottle. Like, I just don't. I don't see a negative. There's always a silver lining. There's always something positive to be found, even in a bad. It's like, I kind of relate it to God is good even when I'm in pain. God is good
Mm.
even when it doesn't work out for me. Like, it, just because whatever I'm feeling, it never changes who God is, right? And so through that lens, it is really pivoted not only my business, but helping people see that
Mm.
yes, you're going through this time, but diamonds are formed under pressure. Lean in. Like, you don't get good things when, like, if you're just status quo all the time and you're never in pressure and you're never like feeling something, then I always say, like, part of the empowerment equation, one of them is to create, like, be in momentum. And
Mm.
sometimes life just isn't happening for you at the pace that you think that you want it to happen. So you can self create momentum. You put a timeline on something. You literally like, okay, I need to do this by X amount of date, and regard, come hell or high water, that's what you do. And
Mm.
only those that are not disciplined don't make it happen, because you know that if you don't make it, like, does anyone really care if you made the deadline? No. Is anyone not going to live today? No. But one
Mm.
of the best things about my younger years is that I've been in life and death decisions. and it changes what everyone else around me constitutes a fire. So when you treat everything like life and death, that means you move at life and death, which means the only difference between me and you, it's not that I'm more talented or that it has nothing to do with talent. It just means that I'm moving at a quicker rate than you. I can make a decision, say that I failed, move a different way. Like I can continually, I have a 70-30 rule in my own leadership. And that makes me be able to make decisions quickly and then move and pivot accordingly. Like I don't sit in the lull very often, and I don't let people sit in the lull either. Right. So when I was 18, I don't know how, but I've always had the ability to see the silver lining and be like, no, 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 we're gonna make this happen. Like X, Y, Z, A, B, let's go. And I've always been able to see the plan, create the plan, and execute the plan. The only thing I feel like that I've gotten really, really good at, besides obviously my faith, is discipline. I've gotten really good at learning that discipline is the key to all things and not when you feel like doing it. Like if you said you were going to do it, it doesn't matter. Like in the empowerment equation, I have it's called the power list, and there's rules to the power list. Like there's 3 rules. You have to make it the night before. It keeps you like very intentional with what you're trying to do the next day. You cannot move anything on the power list. This is not a to-do list. You cannot move, like I don't care if it's 11:59 at night. If you didn't do it, you're not going to bed. Like it's what is required. And you can't do anything. You can't do anything until the power list is done. So it has to be executed first. Why? Because the hardest task that you normally can only put 3 things on the power list, because the reality is the power list is not a to-do list. It's supposed to be the things that you've been putting off or the most important for your business. And if you really did the power list, you would execute on at least 21 items a week. Do that times, like I do the separation gap 1 hour. People tell me, well, how in the hell do you do? It's 1 hour a day, 7 days a week, 28 hours a month, 336 hours a year. And I've been doing this for 15 years. It's 5,040 hours. Right? Like when you really compound it, you start to see that it isn't just an hour a day. It really is compounding, making a legacy difference. It's the consistency of it though. And that's where they fall short. They give up too quickly, you know? And it's sad to see, because so many dreams would actually come to life. So many people would actually be living what they really want to live and be doing the things that they've been called to do. But they start something, and I always say the world is built for the people that don't need the recognition. They don't need to see the clap. They don't need to see, if you can do it and get no recognition for a long period of time, because eventually if you keep toiling, God will bless. And it's just like the craft. He's never going to give you, though, something that's going to kill you. Right. And so you don't know the timing. What I've come to realize is, would I have been ready for the business 5 years ago? No. Did I want? Yeah, probably. I heard him in 2017 say, start the business. And I literally went to him and said, that sounds like a lot of work. I love what I do. I make good money. Why would I do that? No, I'm not doing that. And lo and behold, I didn't do it. And then I heard him again in 2023. And this time it was a different kind of thing. It was, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. And so then it clicked something in me, and I'm like, okay, I still love what I'm doing. I love where I'm at. But if I don't do it, I feel like I'm being disobedient. Right. And for me, like one of the part of in my keynote is you have to know where you're going. Like success is that you got to have a definition of success, because if you don't, other people will create it for you. And so that's very, very important. So I always tell people success equals obedience at God's pace. So then I ask, like, what is your definition? Because if you don't know it, how do you know if you ever achieve it? Right. And so getting them to see that you have to actually put some effort and thought into what does that look like for you? And it's different for everybody. Amen. God created us all different. And the more confident you are with who you are, you can be so joyful for everybody else in who they are and who God created, that it's never competing. It's never like, there's no gatekeeping with me. I'm literally, I'm like an open book. That's why, even being late, life happens. It'll happen when it's supposed to happen. I don't ever worry about like, I just don't worry about the things that are completely out of control. And I also give as much grace because I just am reminded that God has given me more grace than I could ever possibly understand. And I'm grateful for that. So if the very least I can do that here on earth is to be a little conduit of his grace. If you're running late, if you like, I got horrible service the other day at like eating out somewhere, and I had someone say, why would you still tip that person? Like, why would you give the tip when that service was bad? And I looked across the table and I said, because that is what grace is. It's giving when it's not deserved, right? It's showing these little things in real life application of whether it's leadership is not a title. It
Yeah.
really isn't. And I think a lot of people get into leadership for the wrong reasons. They get in either because they need more money or they need control. And you can always tell those types of people. But at the end of the day, like when you get the right person in, if you hire the right person in leadership, there's nothing you can't do. Because when people want to follow the person that's in leadership in the role, because they're leading a life of example, what happens is those people get inspired. They want to be they want to be they don't want to be me. They want to move like me and do things like that is just there's nothing about it them wanting to be they just want what is it that she's doing that gives her the ability to do these things and make such big progress. Well, I will tell you it literally comes down to just priorities, right? I am very good with my word. I never give it and don't follow through. Like everyone has it, but not everyone treats it like it's gold. Right? Like those little things. Like even today, you sent me an email 10 minutes before and said, "Hey, I'm running late." Do you know how many people never even I would have jumped on the call and just waited. It's those little things that mean the most though, because it means you're mindful of someone's time and like it's a mutual respect. And so many people lack the very little things,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
So there was so much gold in that. So I made a couple of notes of
Yeah.
things to get back to because that was amazing. I kind of when you were talking, I was like, wow, this is just so much gold. I don't think I need to add anything there. That was awesome. So we're talking about discipline and about the definition of success. So I want to kind of combine those two. And so a lot of the listeners on this show struggle with self-confidence or self-doubt. That's the word I'm looking for. And they are seeking to be confident. So, confidence in either speaking up in meetings or confidence in having those tough conversations. And recently on my show, I actually also aired an episode about Jonah and about if you are like Jonah, sometimes we are like Jonah in our leadership because we're not physically running away from God, but actually we make decisions to be disobedient to God,
Yeah.
to the calling of God. And so a
Yes.
lot of them will avoid those tough conversations. They'll avoid those hard things that they have to do. It's exactly what you were mentioning. So a lot of them are avoiding that hard stuff. And you had mentioned as well that it's like those diamonds where, you are formed in that tough situations. So if we talk about the definition of success and then that discipline, the definition of success for a lot of the listeners on this show they want to be confident.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned that they need to be disciplined and that you're not doing it just because you want to do it. You're doing it because you have to do it. So what advice would you give to the listeners who are really in that? They want to be confident in whatever the situation is that they want to be confident, but they're struggling. They're struggling with self-doubt. They're struggling with discipline. They're struggling to understand what it is that they, need to be working towards. So from your experience, we talked a lot about discipline, but how can they get started with that?
Well, I want to break this down into two things because I think we have two issues that we need to to actually solve this issue. We need to first start with the self, okay? Because anytime you dumb yourself down in a room, like God created you for a reason. Like he gave you the abilities and who you are, your own DNA, right? You don't need every time you shrink. I always tell people if you can't be like every day you spend being somebody else, the world loses a day of you because there's only one of you. You're like your DNA, everything, your fingerprint, there is only one. How you respond to things, the first foremost is you must be authentically you. Okay. And so that leads me to when you are authentically you, I get asked a lot, how is it that you are able to have such difficult conversations with people and speak up more than like in a room, and I'll be a little more, not I don't want to use the word aggressive, but maybe it is a difficult conversation, right? What I've realized is that the true difference between some person A and me is that the true diamond is you never switch up. I never switch up. It doesn't matter if I'm on this podcast, if I'm keynoting somewhere, if I'm at work, if I'm with, like, it does not matter where I am. I am always me. You're always going to get the true version of me. And the reality to that, though, is people appreciate authenticity. They never have to worry about like me jumping on a call with someone and I'm this version of me. And then they get in and they see me in another work like atmosphere. And because then that gives them doubt of not only who I am, but what I'm doing behind the scenes. And then it makes it very difficult to have a hard conversation because the person doesn't trust you. Right. So if you can just own who you are and get really confident in you, because you come with gifts and talents, you come with strengths. And when you become confident in who you are, everyone else starts to take notice. And not because you need to be noticed and all these things, but there's something about confidence that resonates. And I want to be very clear here. Confident, I am not referring to ego. There is a very thin line, and I don't think you should cross the line. When you step into I'm the best and no, you are not the best. God gave you that and he can take it away too. Right? So you just have to know that, like, when I always tell like people in my work atmosphere, I'm very good at leadership and I'm very good with numbers. Anything else, I suck. And I'm okay saying that, because what I've built, though, is that I know my strong points and I build teams with people that make up my deficiencies. And I don't have to, the good thing is God loves us all. And so he gave everybody with a different set of talent, like a different set of gifts and talents. And when I use them appropriately, they get to shine. They feel appreciated. They contribute more than they could ever, like, they feel so much joy contributing, because who wants to be a part of a team that somebody knows all, knows nothing? Like, nobody wants to be a part of that. And the best people that are actually really talented and can contribute, they go find a different team because they're not going to be underutilized. Like, if they're competing with their boss because they don't get any, like, you don't ever need them, then they're going to be like, well, what does she even need me for? You know what I mean? And no one likes to work for someone like that. So A, you got to have confidence. B, how do you get that, though? If you don't have that, I will tell you the first place to start is you have to care more about you than you care about your job. And so in my keynote, I go through and I ask these two questions. If you showed up for work, like out of the last 20 days of the month, 5 days in a week, right? 4 weeks in a month. If you went to work more often than you wanted to, like put that number at like what, how many days out of 20? And then I ask you, great, now that the number's there, now let's flip the equation. How many times have you wanted to insert X? And X is different for everybody. Maybe you're working on your relationship. Maybe you're working on your marriage or spending time with kids or getting back into the Bible or whatever that X is. It's a priority for you. How many times have you done that out of 20? And if the top number is bigger than the bottom number, I'm here to suggest to you that the reason why you are not confident is because your priorities are out of alignment. Because you're putting more priority into showing up for work than you are yourself. And the problem with that is there is nothing that you can do more important than showing up for yourself. So with the power list, if you say I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m. and you don't, does anyone care? Does the world like stop? No. But the reality is that you now don't believe you. And when you don't believe you for the little things of getting up, reading your Bible, spending time with your kids in the morning, getting them off to school without an attitude, like being grateful, like those little things that you tell yourself and you don't show up in that way, it then subconsciously you don't believe you. So when you actually go to walk into a room, you're already like, when someone says, oh, I'm going to do it, you literally will say, well, I don't know if I'm really going to do it because I said I was going to wake up today and I didn't. And I have this mantra in leadership that the only way you're going to be exceptional in leadership, if you go and tend to anybody else, even your kids, if you tend to anybody else before you take care of yourself, it's not possible. because leadership comes from an overflow place, and you can't lead from an overflow place if you're giving them your first, right? It's not possible. So if we work on confidence, you have to work on you. And if we're working on you, that builds confidence. Then it builds authenticity of who you are, because you're going to be proud of who you are, which then gives you the ability to walk into these rooms and be like, I don't need to be Tiffany. Tiffany's Tiffany. I'm going to be me. And I don't want to be anybody else, but I'm also going to appreciate Tiffany because I don't need to be Tiffany, right? There comes like an awareness there and a very grateful sense of leadership that you can just have an appreciation for everyone's differences. And then how do you actually execute this? You start one day at a time. There was a time like getting up early for me at one point in time was 7 a.m. But I will tell you that as you get better and you go and lead different things, like when I started my business, I had to wake up. I wake up now every day at 3 a.m. And I always make this very clear. I'm not telling you that to be successful, you have to wake up at 3 a.m. But what I am telling you is that if you want to be successful and you want to do it well, you have to wake up at whatever time that is for you, that you have taken care of you. You can't. So if it's 6 o'clock, great. If it's 5 o'clock, great. If it's 1 a.m., that's what it is. It is what it is, because here's the thing. Doing your best is great, but that is not enough. You must do what is required. So I love when people say, but I'm doing my best. Okay, wonderful. And unfortunately, that is not enough. You have to do what is required. And if you want to nail leadership, you must take care of you first. So what does that mean? You have to take care of your spiritual health. I spend an hour in the word every single day. I used to go to the gym in the first thing in the morning and I would do the word at night. I did a pivotal shift in November of 2023 and it changed my life. Like I give him my first hour of the morning. I spend quiet time with him and I let him speak to me and take care of my spiritual health. Then I do cardio for 20 or 30 minutes to take care of my health. And then I read. I read for 30 to 45 minutes, whatever I have time for, whatever I've allocated that day going on. So I've taken care of my mental, my spiritual, and my physical. And now I'm getting ready because I'm going to pour into thousands. And to do that, they're getting my overflow. They're not getting they're not getting my whatever's left. You know what I mean? And so that you do those things and you start with day one. Like it doesn't matter what you've done yesterday. It's gone. Like you can't think about that. We're not perfect, but what I will say is it's never too late to start. And if you get a coach that's done it and can teach you and show you how to do it, because everyone's life is different, because again, the mantra, if you could, you would. So just start with day one and then honestly be accountable at the end of the week. Take a journal. How many days out of the 5 or 6 did you do what you said you were going to do? And then like my vision board goes back years all over my room. And my daughter used to like laugh about it because they're very colorful. And she'd be like, Mom, what is this? But at the end of the day, every month I put a vision like together of what I'm going to accomplish. And at the end of the beginning of the next month, I go back to the last month and I say, if I made it, yes. And if I didn't, I write why I didn't make it. And sometimes my goals were just too big for the month. I ate there was no way I was going to do some of this. Like even being a director, there's no way as a frontline manager, you're going to be a director. Like it's just not, there's a couple steps in between, right? So sometimes it just wasn't realistic. But at the end of the day, I always knew why I didn't meet the goal. And there were some months that I had to be honest and say, you didn't meet the goal because you were lazy. You got distracted. It wasn't a priority. You said it was a priority, but you put everything else. Right. And so I think when you get honest with yourself and you have someone that you can talk to about it, I think it becomes there's no way you can go but up. You can only just keep getting better when you're accountable. Right. And so I think that's the formula to not only having difficult conversations, but being confident in the rooms that you're in. And then how do you do it? You break it down one day at a time and you make sure that you show up for you. Like if you said you were going to go to the gym in the morning and you didn't go, guess what you're doing? You're calling in sick. You're taking a couple hours of leave because you can't go to work until you take care of you. Because why? The most important priority is you. It's not work. If anything in this world, we have known and see in today's world that if you put something before you and before God, everything will fall apart. And then they like I'm having a lot of real conversations right now with people that are about to lose their job. And I always start with the conversation. You might have been here 15 years, but you put all your eggs in the basket, but you stop taking care of you. Because one thing that we should never do as leaders is stop developing and stop growing. So no matter where you find yourself on the leadership spectrum, if you don't have a degree, get a degree. If you want to start a business, start a business. But you should never be in a job where the job is not your dream, it's not your company, and you find yourself doing nothing on your personal time to keep getting better. Because if you stop growing and learning and developing, you're not benefiting anybody around you. And
Mhm.
eventually, where do you go from there? Like I always tell people when you get in the military, great that you did 20 years. I am like, hats off to you. I think the service is incredible. But what you don't want to do is go put 20 years in the service. You didn't apply anything personally. You get out 20 years older with no skills. Like, what is that? Like, I think that's what I want people to take away is never stop working on you.
Mm.
And when the priority is you, your life begins to change because God does something amazing when you make him the priority and you the priority of what he gave you. And then he opens doors that would have never opened if you wouldn't have made him a priority.
Mm.
So,
Absolutely. It makes me think of that saying that you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to fill up your own cup first, and then you can
bingo.
pour it out.
Bingo.
Absolutely.
But so many people say they got to go to work. Oh, but
Yeah.
Tiffany, I got to go to work. I got to pay the bills. Yes,
Mm.
but eventually that job will say you're not needed here. And then
Mm.
what do you have? Where do you
Mm.
go from there?
Mm.
And everyone, like even the federal government, that was up until this year. This was pretty much a for sure thing. After you made it past your year, I haven't had any, I've had a lot of conversations, and this has never happened before, right? So it just goes to show you that just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't.
Mm.
But what I will say to that is if you never take your eye off the main priority to begin with, which God says is you, it's not the worldly possessions and the prize and the awards and the money and all the things that the world tells you is important. It isn't. Like that's why I tell these people like I tell so many people this is just a game. And if you can learn to master the game, like don't play chess with checkers. You're never going to win.
Mhm.
Right? Like just get in the word, know the priority, stay
Yeah.
on that game. And when
Yeah.
you're playing that game, it doesn't matter what everyone else plays, you never lose. You just can't lose when he's got provision over your life. It just is impossible.
Absolutely. Well, this was amazingly so insightful. I didn't even have to ask lots of questions, which was so amazing because you were just talking about your topic. You clearly know your topic very well because I think you are a subject of leadership. You've
Thank you.
been your whole life you've been
Yep.
to that, and I think because your parents were in the military as well, I think that's why you see it very often that children who grow up in the military are natural born leaders in that space because
Yep.
you get brought up with discipline. I think that's the one thing
Yes.
that I know of some people that I know who are in the military, and then now yourself as well, is discipline. It's hard, but it's something that you have to do. And for us who have not been in the military, or for us who struggle with discipline, we look at you guys and we're like, oh, we're so jealous, we want to have that discipline as well. But it's definitely something that I know from what you just mentioned as well, is you have to do it. It's, I see my husband, he's a public servant as well, and he starts work early in the morning as well, but he gets up at 3 too. He gets up at 3 because then he goes and spends an hour and a half in the gym, fills
Yep.
his cup, and then
Yes.
he's off to his 10 or 12 hour shift.
Yep.
So
Yep.
100% he's mastered that discipline, and it's tough for him to get up at 3 a.m. to go to the
And
gym.
no one likes to get up at 3. I tell people
No.
this all the time. You think I like waking up at 3? There are days where I don't go to bed till midnight because whatever happened, like life
Yeah.
happened, right? And that's not a normal every day. Like I normally do get to bed at a very reasonable time. But the thing is that if I told myself I'm going to get up at 3 and I don't, then
Mm,
it's not only do I let myself down. And what I
mm,
won't do is I won't let myself down and make everybody else the priority because no one else is going to make my dream come true. No one else is going to fight for me. No one else is going to keep me healthy in my older years. No one else is going to, because what I really fear the most is when I get to heaven and God says, "You did good, kid, but that's not what I designed you for."
Mm.
Like, I'm so fearful of, like, I don't want to. That's why I'm very mindful of time. Like, I'm very respectful of people's time because there's no guarantee of tomorrow. But I
Mm.
also move with a sense of urgency. That's why I move so quickly, because it isn't that I think that it's not going to. I know that just because I had tomorrow doesn't mean I get tomorrow again. And so
Mm.
I never want to take for granted the day that I did get.
Mm.
Because if somebody doesn't get the word of encouragement or the motivate or something like my energy or something, even if I said I was going to go get gas, this is a real life scenario. I said I was going to get gas. I told in my power list, get gas tomorrow night. And it's a very simple task, but life got ahead, like life be lifing. And it was like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I am normally way in bed by then. And I
Yeah.
literally said to myself, if you said you were going to do it, like, it's the discipline. You don't ever, like, I will not do what I say, because my word is everything. And it can't
Mm.
just be everything to everybody else if it's nothing to me. Right?
Mm.
It translate, like, you can't be one person to everyone else. And then that would be like saying, I think, well, let me tell you something. If you're telling yourself you're great and no one else is telling that, then you're full of crap. Like, you're just filling your head, because normally if you're
Yeah.
great, they're telling you, right? Like, so anyway, I get up and I go to the gas station, and I kid you not, there was a lady there that for some reason or another, her debit card was not working. I don't know what was going, but she couldn't pay. And I knew at that moment that God had said, I knew I did, like, to be known by God, to be used by God is so wonderful. But in that moment, I finally knew what it felt to be trusted by God.
Mm.
And that in itself is a whole new feeling, that when you say you're going to do something, he knows you're going to follow through. So he can put the very need there at the same time. Because if I would have been, oh, I'm tired, I would not have been able to be a blessing in that moment for whatever was, like, if I don't know what her circumstance was, and that's not for me to know, God knows though. Right.
Mm.
And so I always am mindful of that I'm a conduit here. He is blessed me with resources, and what I do with them matter. It's like
Mm.
when people say, well, tithing, like, you're not giving the tithe. You're not giving it. It's all, everything belongs to him. You're
Mm.
returning. Like,
Love
change the
that.
mindset to returning, and then everything changes, because you knew it was never yours to begin with. If I gave you $100 bill before the podcast and I said, hey, when I say this one line, give it back, as my pastor would say, then you probably would have no problem giving me the $100 back, because it was never yours to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we change the mindset of the money, but where I'm here to tell you that where the money goes, the heart is too, right? Just like the Bible says. And he literally, it's the only place in the Bible he does say test him. And if your audience is not there and you're working on leadership, work on that.
Mm.
Work on that, because that will show you, like, there's so many leadership um traits and characteristics that come in the Bible that I've really honed in on, since I see everything through a leadership lens,
Mm.
that I naturally have a posture of service, but I really am starting to learn, like, sometimes service, it's hard. Service is not easy all the time.
Mm-mm.
Service is not, it's not when service is not convenient. It is not. It is, it comes with a price, but it's like someone's dream. When people come to me and they say, but I have this dream, but I don't know, I don't have the money to do it. And I'm like, there's a cost. There is an unwritten cost for something that you don't become. And the only problem is that you don't actually think about the cost that you never pay. All the times you said you were going to spend time with your kids or work on the marriage, when you don't see that the cost actually does add up. And just because you can't see it, I think people are willing to pay it because they don't see it, because they're not aware. But what I use health for everything, because it's a very good example. Just because you don't see not working out and going to the gym and taking care of your health in your 20s, 30s, 40s, it does show up in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. Because I'll be like traveling, and a lot of elderly find themselves going to doctor's appointments and very, very ill. And that is a very good, like, tangible example where I can say, just because you don't see the cost at 20, 30, and 40 of the hour that you didn't go, it does accumulate into something, and you will pay in your later years. And your dream is the same thing. If you think that there is not a cost, that you're like, if you would have just stopped working and said, oh, I'm not going to do the dream, I'm not going to start the business, I'm not going to use the gift that he gave me, you would have, like, how many people do you actually get to change? Your impact will be tremendous, because it's serving the kingdom. Like, you're doing God's work. There's no way he won't bless it. And just remember that, and this is just for you, I had someone remind me of this when I was starting out. So I'm going to give you this little tidbit because it literally game changed for me. Are you ready?
Mhm.
God doesn't care about the number. Always remember that God never says only one person listened. He never said, he doesn't care about the number. We care because we're human and we see it through the human lens. But I'm here to tell you that if you can take the human lens as much as possible and see it through God's eyes, he is celebrating for even the one. So don't think that one, Instagram and everything else will tell you you need thousands. You need, okay. No, you don't. You don't. You serve one. You need a job well done from one. That's it. And if you can stay focused on that, it doesn't matter what it becomes because whoever you bless in them, like whatever your impact is, it is always God ordained as long as you are going through provision from him and asking him to toil and where does he want to use you and who does he want to bring you to and all those things because he's never late. And so if you feel like, oh, well, it's not going as fast or it's not for anybody starting out, like stay focused. Stay focused on the priority, stay focused on where he wants you, and just let it unravel whenever he wants it to unravel because it's never late. And you don't want to be somewhere like you never want to be somewhere outside of his provision. It's like an umbrella. If you could go and blow up, but the umbrella's not covering you, it's not a good place to be. Stay under the umbrella. Move with the umbrella and be at his time and you'll see like it he blows your mind. And it's incredible and you get to be like you get wonderful conversation like this. Like I would have never have met you if I would have never have taken the risk to start the business and you didn't start yours like right it ended up being a random email to you and literally because of the title you have in your podcast. Like isn't it God is so faithful. He's just so good.
Yeah, this is interesting because the podcast was something that I literally had started because I was just obedient to him. He called me into the women's ministry. Also, it was interesting because you mentioned in 2017. So 2017, he called me into the women's ministry, and I always thought it was the church. But then again, in 2023, God said to me, no, start a podcast. And I was like, oh, this is, what are people going to think of me if I start a podcast? And who am I to start a podcast about leadership to women of faith,
I love this.
And I just was obedient. I did it, and yeah, look where we are in 2025.
I'm so proud of you.
Oh,
I'm
thank
so
you.
proud of you. And I'm just like elated with joy because I know it sounds crazy, but it is the hardest step to take to start. But once it starts, like it really is. I feel like you're winning once you take the first step because once you take the first step and you stay focused on the next and not the 100th step that I just had this conversation with my best friend who's also starting a business right now. And she's so worried about like 5 years from now. I'm like, stop right now. Like that'll make you the anxiety go, right? But I feel like that also takes God out of it. Like you can't like that's what I'm saying. Enjoy the process of who he's creating you in it and that you even started it and you obeyed. If you wouldn't have obeyed, I would have never been here. And whoever listens to this would have never gotten this gem, right? Like that's what I'm saying. It's just so he's just so faithful, and it's just it never I mean, sometimes it surprises me, but then when you live in expectation of who, like if you believe and you spend honest time with him and you know who he says he is before, is, and was, and is to come, then you should show up with expectation because he's God and there's nothing he can't do. So we just move in rooms of like expectation and he meets you where you're at, but he also blows your socks off sometimes. And he's like, just to like, I feel like God sometimes like stunts on me. He's like, and what? What? Food for thought. It was just amazing. I gotta tell you this. I went and got baptized this last weekend. And it was just, I literally felt it was like my wedding day. I was in tears and I got a divine message from him that day. And I will share it with you because I haven't shared it with anybody. Someone approached me and told me that it was he's like, I feel really uncomfortable, but I'm going to, approach you and tell you that the message from God is what he's about to do is so incredible in your life, but always remember that it's never you and it's him. It's through his strength, right? So I felt when I really journaled through that this week, I'm starting to realize that like, don't get prideful. Don't ever lose your posture of gratitude. And so maybe it isn't for you, but it was for me this weekend. And so I'm here to tell you, no matter how big you get always remember that he didn't like, he did everything you're about to do. He brought us together, right? And so keep serving him, keep your listener base like serving the kingdom. And I'm excited for you. I'm so blessed to like even be here a part of it, but this is just incredible. Like, this is just great. So good.
What
Thank you.
an amazing conversation we've had today.
Yeah.
Where can the listeners actually connect with you after the show? Because you know, you've got such a, like you said, you're a motivational speaker. I can feel
Yeah.
the energy.
Right?
Where can
I
they
can
connect
feel
with
the
you?
energy. I'm learning to like match the room. I'm learning that. Let's see, TiffanyMorice.com is where you can go, and I'm only on Instagram under Tiffany Morice Speaker, and I'm on TikTok as well. But I will just be very honest, I do not check DMs because sometimes they get out of control, and sometimes you don't know what's in your DMs, right? So I'm trying to like keep it very honest, and I just want God to like, so I do not check DMs, but if you go to TiffanyMorice.com and send me a message, I will get it, and my team will shoot it over to me.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes as well, so people can connect
Awesome.
with you. And yeah, you said and there's a website there as well, so that's good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
You're
much
just
for
a
your time, and
blessing.
thank you for being
Thank you so much.
flexible.
Of course.
I shared with Tiffany before, for those listeners, that I was 10 minutes late, and it was such a good learning opportunity for my kids this morning. Again, like I could have gotten frustrated. I could have gotten, because I knew I had the interview this morning with Tiffany, but we just had such a beautiful learning opportunity in my house this morning to help a stranger. And so Tiffany was so gracious to be patient, to wait for me. And in that moment, I know that, God's good. God's good. So,
Amen.
yeah. Thank you so much for your time today. It was
Welcome.
an absolute pleasure to chat with you today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you. Have the best day.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts? It would mean so much to me to read your feedback. Also, it would really bless me big if you shared this episode with a fellow leader who might benefit from hearing today's message. And remember, put on the armor of God daily and walk by faith and not by sight. I'll meet you back on Monday for another episode.